I'd like to welcome Ken Nicolson, a lawyer and previously a registered psychologist. Now, Ken, thank you very much for joining me. Now, you're traveling with the Safe and Effective Roadshow. Now, hearing words like mandatory and phrases like safe and effective have a new meaning for a lot of people now. In fact, actually, for a lot of people, it's quite triggering. Now, Ken, you're traveling with this roadshow. It begins 9th of November in Dunedin. Then we've got Queenstown, Nelson, and Wellington, all within 1 week. So you must be
Mm.
really, really motivated to join that roadshow. Can you tell us why?
Well, actually, without blowing my own trumpet, the roadshow is my idea. I came to the situation with having done work with people who were adversely affected by the vax, and I'm running a class action. And what I felt was that the class action was going to take a long time, and that the powers that be would do everything they could to avoid any publicity, that the general media would actually probably bury this thing as much as possible. So in order to try and get the thing out there into the public eye, I came up with this idea of the roadshow. So I approached Donna Clapham and we sat down and worked out what we could do from there. And that's how come the roadshow was born. And then from then on, we just had such a lot of amazing people join us. And the idea, if I may explain, is to get it out there into the community amongst ordinary people, just the average ordinary person who's on the fence, who doesn't know, who's got sick people in their family and they don't know why, or they're getting reoccurring problems with their own health, or they're just wondering what happened to the so-called safe and effective vax, because that's everything but that. It's not just ineffective, because people get COVID over and over and over, but it's also unsafe. And that's what we're finding out. That's the biggest problem, is that we're dealing with a lot of people with a lot of injuries. And some of them, of course, are dying.
And you sort of hit the nail on the head a lot there, that people are sick, but they're probably not actually correlating it with the actual vaccine itself. Have you come across that?
Oh, absolutely. That is the main problem. What we need to do, and there's a saying, of course, we're all using it these days, they're not connecting the dots. That's exactly right. They're not. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I guess they could be in denial. I mean, people who have been vaxxed, they're having to live with that problem. And you wouldn't perhaps like to admit that there's something in you that's possibly not going to, do good things for you. So what we're trying to do is say, well, okay, that could be the case, depending on how many vaccinations you've had. But the other point that's really important is that we have remedies and ways of dealing with it that are going to allow people to possibly recover and detox and so on. So the roadshow covers a lot of modalities. And from my point of view, it's a legal point of view. As a psychologist, of course, I saw the psychology of this whole campaign from the government was diabolical, wasn't it? I mean, the narrative, the propaganda, the whole concept of fear, the way they pushed that was just phenomenal. And people just felt obligated, compliant to protect their own, to protect their family, to protect themselves. It was a complete lie. So we're just bringing that concept to the public, the ordinary person in the street, and let them think about it and ask questions about it.
It's hard to fathom. Like, you can imagine it would be hard to fathom for the just the normal Kiwi that the government could actually achieve what they've achieved. So you can understand how difficult it would be to think that we're being deceived and lied to.
I know. I really know that. This is the thing that I struggle with as well, because I guess we've always trusted the government. We vote them in. To be honest, I voted Jacinda in the first time round. My family have been Labor supporters for the whole of my life. But they didn't prove to be. I don't want to turn this into a political speech, but what I'm saying is that the trust was broken at that point. And in any relationship, the trust is important, and the trust and confidence was completely broken. But the difficulty is, as you say, is that people are not used to mistrusting the government. And that's why I have so much trouble struggling with the idea that we're talking about something that's real, and they're in some sort of la la land believing everything's all right when it's not. And I must say this, people think we've moved on. This is an old problem. It's not. It's here right in front of us now every day. More and more people are dying. More people are getting sick with, turbo cancers, with, heart issues, myocarditis, pericarditis, shingles, facial dropsy problems, the whole thing, Bell's palsy, everything. All these things are going on, but they don't tell you that there's any relationship between that and the vax.
Well, in all fairness, Ken, what I have experienced here at the Bryland Functional Medicine Centre, I've had doctors, I've had nurses come to see me because they're unwell. And being very cautious how I bring the subject of the COVID vaccine up, they never even put two and two together. And now we're talking about medical professionals. And I think fundamentally the gods of the medical industry have been very clever. They've departmentalized everything. So no one really knows what's going on. So if the general practitioner is told to wear a mask because it's come from the orthodox medical system, then they're going to wear a mask. Whereas a virologist should know that, well, a mask is going to increase bacteria potential, viral potential, and all sorts of range of other health conditions. And so even the medical industry, and I've got personal friends in the medical industry that have been duped by this military grade propaganda machine.
Okay, you obviously understand and believe what I believe. That's exactly what it was. I think, to be honest, can I respond to that? Because it seems to me that that doctors have been no different from anybody else. They've responded the same way as the average person in the street. The only difficulty was, of course, that they were supposed to inform people so they could give informed consent. And a lot of doctors, of course, completely ignored that because they were told to. And once those orders came from above, their whole career was on the line. So this concept of fear, of mandating, sending out information, preventing people from doing what they would naturally, ordinarily do, which is inform people of the risks they felt they couldn't, because their job was on the line, their career was on the line. And we have some very brave doctors on this roadshow, like Matt Sheldon, of course, and many others that are in New Zealand Doctors SOS.
Yep.
Just phenomenal guys. Yeah, I mean, they really are, because they've stood up, they've faced the medical association, and they've even taken them on in court. So, we're up against what most people would do, which is believe the authority. But let's not forget that even the authority themselves, that's the government, which was Jacinda at the time, she came back and she said, well, actually, it's not so effective. We got that wrong. And then later she said, well, masks are not effective. So in some ways, they turned that around a little bit on themselves, which gave us a little bit of headway. Enabled us to say, well, they said it doesn't work, and that's what we've been saying all the way through. So, that's kind of how it's gone.
I guess what we've got to be mindful of is, you're right, the damage is occurring right now, but we also have future threats. Now, whilst I don't want to make this political either, but we have the World Health Organization that wants to control legislation so they can force us down, hold us down, vaccinate us. They can force quarantine. They're trying to change legal definitions, is my understanding, on things. So it's not just about the now, but it's also about actually, wait a minute, we need to understand what could potentially happen in the future. We don't want to have a repeat of this, do we, Ken?
No, we don't. That's exactly right. So, if I may say that the roadshow is an attempt to try and educate, enable, give people the understanding of perhaps that very thing, that there's a possibility this is not the end of it, whether it be monkeypox or whether it could be bird flu or it could be some other pandemic they think up. That's something we're going to have to face. We are going to have to face that possibility. The World Health Organization, WEF, all of them are capable of pushing stuff on us. And it doesn't stop, of course, with those medical issues, does it? It's wider than that. I mean, we're talking about digital identification, 15-minute cities. They're all part of that same whole conspiracy. Well, that's what they called us, but in fact, that's their conspiracy, and it's all true. So in some ways, not all of it is necessarily true, but there's that on the fringes. They are things that we have to consider and arm people with that possibility. So the next time around, they will say, no, we do not comply. That's the only thing we can do, is give them that empower them so that they can actually think about it again.
I've just toured the South Island and I intend to do the North Island as well. And part of my 3-hour seminar is not just talking about functional medicine and strategies to maximize wellness and all that kind of stuff, but also it's about building community awareness of threats like medicated water, e.g. fluoridation, 5G, smart cities. All these people need to be aware of this, because only really at the bottom line, it's only community knowledge and the uniting of community that we can get change. Would that be a fair enough comment?
Oh, I think that's absolutely, totally accurate. It sounds a bit garbled there. I'm not sure what happened, but yes, that's exactly right. So it's a question of widening the idea that we're presenting from COVID, the vax, all that sort of stuff, and widening it right out to let them know what else is possible as well. And all the things you're suggesting, like we've taken those things for granted. One of them being fluoride in our water. Well, there's plenty of research out saying that fluoride is not good for us, not good for us at all, but it's being forced on us by councils, voting to put it in our water, regardless of whether we like it or not. We've had some legal court cases on that. We've failed in those cases, but I think if we get the pressure on, we will succeed there too eventually. But you're right, there's those other issues that you've raised. They're very important, and we need to enable people to make those decisions about all of those issues, because they're all part of the same narrative. Yeah.
A lot of people are really excited about this roadshow. I see it's being spread on social media. A lot of people say they're going to go, tickets are being sold. Now, it's not necessarily just about the potential of having medical damage, but it's also about, I guess, a lot of people have been mandated out of work. They've lost their jobs. They've been fired. So I guess it's not just the medical help, but also the legal help or the legal information, because a lot of these mandates, which we think are law, are not actually law. Are you covering any of that type of information in your talk?
Definitely. I mean, those are the things that I will be covering. Melissa McCann, I'm not sure how I pronounce that, in Australia is doing a class action for people who are injured. But I have been doing employment work a lot of the time throughout this whole process. Linda Wharton was sending some clients to me for people who were losing their jobs, being made redundant, but they weren't really redundant. They just weren't taking the vax. I've done, and I've been successful lately. I have been very successful. Prior to this, the courts didn't want to know, but now they're having to realize that this is complete. It's illegal to actually mandate somebody out of a job. Many of the jobs have no need for the people to be vaccinated at all, and they used the excuse initially that this was a health risk, but there are plenty of jobs that like teachers, for instance, the nurses, the whole lot of them, all of them put their jobs on the line. Many of them stood up to the narrative and avoided it, but many didn't and couldn't, and unfortunately they have they've suffered. And I guess what we're looking at here is changing that whole thing, empowering all of us to get off the fence and make a definite sort of response to it, which is non-compliant. Tell them what we really want. Tell them what the people want. And it's about freedom, to be honest. This is about freedom. Freedom, sovereignty over our bodies, the sovereignty over our decision-making, making good decisions for all of us, making our society, our community, a health and safety place to live.
Ken, it's very commendable what you've done. You've taken a risk standing up against the system, as with a lot of the medical people, like the NZDSOS. They stood up for our rights, our freedoms, for transparency, for informed choice. They've been persecuted for that. They're still being persecuted for that. You've taken a risk to stand up for what is right, and it's really commendable. And I really look forward to meeting you in Dunedin on the 9th of November. And for those who are watching this, make sure you book now. Depending on when you watch this video, there might be still an early bird discount available. And we're going to be in, again, Dunedin, Queenstown, Nelson, and Wellington. You really don't want to miss this out. This is a historic event that you want to be part of. And it's about securing not only our future or our needs for the now, but our future, but also the future for our children. Now, one thing that motivates me, by the way, Ken, is I've got a 15-month-old and a four-year-old. And,
Wow. Well done, you.
when I start going down these sort of rabbit holes, so to speak, of what the World Economic Forum are doing, what the WHO and
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
Thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want that future for my children.
No,
And
you've
that's
got a vested interest for
so
sure.
motivated, just like you are, to help. Now, luckily, before the vaccines come out, we've got a hall here at the Bryland Centre, so doctors and nurses were using that to find answers about this mandate. And so we've been, very progressive, very vocal about not getting the vaccine. In fact, our practitioner in Timaru, he's well into his 80s now. He's a mathematician. He actually pulled the Pfizer study to bits and proved categorically 600 deaths within the first 24 hours. Yet that type of information, that type of data is suppressed. And it's people like yourself that what it does is it validates so many people who have been wronged. And I think that's a really huge thing. It validates them. When the NZDSOS had their conference and I got to interview Dr. Paul Marrick and Professor Angus Dalgleish, one of the things I said, does this actually validate you? Because you've been persecuted. You've lost your job. Does this validate you meeting all these other doctors and all these other professionals who have exactly the same line of thought as you? And I think if anything we get out of that is validation. Would that be a fair enough comment?
I would say that's exactly right. I think that's one of the things that we're finding as we go along, that people are realizing that our so-called conspiracies are all true and that we're actually on the right side of this, not on the wrong side. And I mean, that little clip of Jacinda telling us that it was appropriate that there should be two classes of society here in New Zealand. I mean, that is just so typical of what was going on, the vax, the unvax. But it's much wider than that now, and it's time we stood up for what's right for all of us.
And I think the ridicule is lessening now. The ridicule of not being vaccinated or questioning is becoming less. And I think it's good timing now for something like this conference.
I think so too, and I totally agree. But there's no question that we are at risk still, but the more of us there are coming together and talking about these issues in public, that is a protection in itself. They can't kill us all, which is, I guess that's always a possibility, but we're all hoping that that's not going to happen. But, we are very concerned. I mean, look at Barry Young, who's put in jail because he presented some information that was vital to all of us knowing about. But they tried to bury that and bury him, but they're not going to do that either. We're all there for him as well. So, this is we're at war. We're at war. we're at war, and we're going to win it.
Yes, excellent, Ken. Thank you so much, and we'll see you Dunedin 9th of November.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, William. I appreciate the time. Bye-bye.